Today we are going over the top 5 scariest paranormal investigations no one talks about. Kick back, grab a snack and hit the subscribe button. Five. The Whispering Woods. In the fall of 2011, members of the Nightcrawler Society, a group of amateur paranormal investigators, embarked on an expedition to the infamous Whispering Woods in Oregon. With trees towering like ancient sentinels stretching skyward, the woods concealed dark secrets. Locals spoke in hushed tones of strange occurrences, wandering shadowy figures and disembodied whispers echoing through the foliage. Armed with night vision cameras, EMF detectors, and an insatiable curiosity, the crew was determined to unveil the enigma lurking beneath the wooded canopy. As twilight descended, an unsettling silence fell over the forest, a sharp contrast to the vibrant chorus of rustling leaves and chirping crickets. The group set up their equipment in a small clearing, the air thick with anticipation. The first sign of activity sparked excitement, a low static hum emanating from the EMF detectors. They felt the thrill of possibility expand as they nestled deeper into the darkness. However, it was the first whisper, soft and indistinct, that shot chills down their spines. Distracted whispers morphed into words, "Help me," a haunting murmur that drifted among tangled branches. Sarah, a newcomer to the team known for her enthusiastic energy, felt compelled to follow the sound. Ignoring the cautions of her friends, she stepped into the dense underbrush, ears straining to catch the lingering whispers. "Don't go," Michael, the team leader, called out, his voice laden with concern, but a strange compulsion pushed her forward. The whispers felt like a beckoning, a plea for assistance she simply couldn't ignore. She trudged deeper into the abyss, adrenaline rushing through her veins as shadows melded with the earth, each step echoing with the weight of uncertainty. As Sarah ventured farther, her flashlight flickered ominously, the beam sputtering before plunging her into suffocating darkness. Panic surged within her, a primal instinct that made every nerve stand at attention. She fumbled with her equipment, desperately trying to regain light, but the whispers enveloped her, their urgency escalating to frantic cries that seemed to echo not just in the air but within her head. "Help us, save us," a chorus of voices implored, twisting her emotions and drawing her deeper into despair. Meanwhile, her friend stood frozen in the clearing, the atmosphere changing in an instant. The gentle rustling of leaves transformed into ominous rustling, like footsteps creeping forward. Michael gathered the group, urging them to approach the whereabouts Sarah had last directed her steps. But a gut-wrenching fear gripped their hearts when they realized they could no longer hear her voice. They clutched their flashlight beams, desperately cutting through the encroaching dark, feeling the weight of unseen eyes watching their every move. Just as they reached a clearing deeper into the woods, they caught sight of Sarah. She stood unnaturally still under a towering oak, her face pale and haunted, completely entranced by something lurking in the underbrush. The team's relief quickly morphed into dread as they realized she had become a vessel for whatever force haunted Whispering Woods. She turned toward them, her eyes wide and unblinking, mouth moving almost mechanically as she repeated, "We are angry, you shouldn't have come." The group sputtered in shock, realizing too late the dangers of their intrusion. In that moment, the atmosphere erupted. The trees seemed to writhe in anguish, branches whipping like tentacles, and the whispers spiraled into horrifying screams demanding their departure. With adrenaline fueled by terror, the team wheeled around, instinctually fleeing. As they ran, distorted echoes of their own thoughts taunted them. "This is your fault," they seemed to hear, unnervingly synchronized with their footsteps. The once familiar path became maddeningly convoluted, leading them into a tight maze where every crack of a twig sounded like fate's footsteps behind them. Emerging from the trees, they stumbled into the open, gasping for breath, horror still fresh in their minds. Sarah, dazed but present, collapsed to the ground. It wasn't until days later, as they reflected on their trauma, that they realized her arm bore a dark bruise shaped like a handprint, a mark from something far darker than they had initially believed. They swore the whispers followed them home, phantasmal echoes lingering in the silence of their rooms late at night, always reminding them of the darkness they had awakened, and the consequences of inadequately understanding the boundaries they crossed in search of the unknown. The Lisa O'Malley haunting. In late 1999, when the air held a chill, promising winter, an experienced team of paranormal investigators was invited to Lisa O'Malley's home in rural Massachusetts. A recent widow, Lisa's quiet life had been upended by strange occurrences, lights flickering, furniture moving inexplicably, and hushed murmurs that skimmed the edges of her reality. Local rumors spiraled wildly, suggesting that darkness lurked within the creaking beams of her aging Victorian home. Drawn to this tragic narrative, the investigators were eager to document the phenomena affecting her, hoping to bring both clarity and closure. Upon arrival, the investigators noted the oppressive air hanging in Lisa's home. A heavy blanket draped over the space as Lisa shared her heart-wrenching tale. The loss of her husband in a tragic accident paired with her downward spiral into isolation. But it was Lisa's claim of hearing a child's laughter turning into desperate sobbing that carved the darkest shadows in their hearts. As she spoke, her eyes darted nervously to the corners, acknowledging a fear that something beyond grief plagued her. The investigators quickly set up equipment, cameras fixed at strategic angles, EMF detectors ready to capture anything unusual. Yet, as the sun dipped below the horizon, they felt the heat dissipate, transforming the cozy atmosphere into one that bristled with tension. The first sign of activity came as the lights flickered, followed by a gentle breeze that swept through the room despite the lack of open windows. Hope glimmered in their eyes, but it instantly faltered as the shadows lengthened, making the air feel almost alive. With growing dread, the team separated to explore different areas of the house, hoping to capture evidence of the unseen spirit that seemed to hold Lisa in its grasp. As the hours trickled by, whispers formed from the air, words spoken just out of reach of comprehension. The tension escalated as one investigator, Simon, encountered a presence in the living room that filled him with an unshakable dread. The air had become thick, as though a dark cloud hovered above him, and then the sound struck, a child's laughter followed by a sudden echoing wail. Simon's heart raced as he rushed back to the others, but the moment he opened the door, he was met with Lisa's panicked expression. At that moment, Lisa convulsed as if contorted under an unseen weight, her voice twisting into a deep, guttural boom, not hers, but a mocking otherness that sent chills racing along the spines of the investigators. "Leave this place," the echoing voice compelled, striking them with visceral fear, warning them of imminent danger. The investigators exchanged nervous glances, realizing that the haunting force had shifted, reaching out to them instead of serving as a mere bystander to Lisa's despair. As they attempted to calm her, the fabric of reality began to fray. Lisa's body became a vessel through which the trapped souls sought communication, chaotic energy stirred, and objects around the room trembled. Furniture moved as though under an invisible force, and the shadows that had previously lingered became thick tendrils coiling around them, suffocating them with palpable anger and sorrow. The team scrambled in a desperate attempt to anchor Lisa, but the entity was relentless, feeding off their fear as shadows danced wickedly in the dim light. In a moment of strength born from mutual support, the group focused their energy toward Lisa, chanting protective mantras. Slowly, the storm of rage abated, Lisa collapsing to the floor as the entity receded. Chest heaving, the investigators reassured Lisa, who had lost coherence just moments ago. Eventually, she regained her breath, eyes revealing a mixture of confusion and relief. Though the malevolent force had been cast out, the experience lingered, marking the boundaries of their psyche with shadows. As they left, the investigators knew Lisa's journey had just begun, navigating the waters of her grief and questioning the thin veil that separates the living from the lost. 3. The Forgotten Asylum. In 1983, tales of terror spread throughout New England, fueling the desire of a seasoned paranormal group called the Spectral Seekers to investigate what was once a notorious asylum. The sprawling grounds had become the very heart of urban legends, cloaked in the history of tortured souls and botched medical experiments befitting a nightmare. Many had ventured into the crumbling institution, speaking of ghostly wails and odious shadows that lurked in the hollow corridors where sorrow resided thick as fog. Undeterred by the rumors, the seekers prepared for the worst, believing they could document the tragedy that haunted the asylum's depths without consequence. The night they arrived, the atmosphere was electric with unbridled tension. The dilapidated structure loomed large against the night sky, its sagging facade a testament to the suffering that clung to its walls. The investigators gathered their equipment, noting the oppressive quiet, a stillness that seemed unnatural. As they began their walkthrough, the air grew colder with each footstep, sending shivers spiraling down their spines. Flickers of light from their flashlights danced across the textured surfaces, rusted metal and peeling paint, the remnants of lives once confined within. Setting up their gear in the former patient wing, the first signs of activity emerged. A faint static hum began to resonate in the air. Eagerly, the team gathered, their excitement palpable. Soon they captured sounds that echoed through the night, indistinct voices fleeting across their recording devices and creaking floors that seemed to respond to their very presence. However, the excitement quickly soured when the atmosphere shifted. A disconcerting heaviness blanketed them, as if the building understood their purpose and was pushing back against their intrusion. The real horror began when Mark, exploring the basement, encountered something unnatural. The temperature dropped drastically, and the shadows that flickered against the walls gathered, encircling him. As he attempted to retrace his steps, he felt an icy grip tightening around his wrist, pulling him deeper into the shadows. Heart racing, he whirled around, eyes wide with terror, yet the darkness morphed and shifted around him, the sound of anguished cries resonating through the hollow space, merging with the murmur of tortured memories. Meanwhile, the remaining team members sensed the disturbance, each person butting against an unsettling urgency to rescue Mark. A split second later, the sudden silence shattered as a loud crash resonated from the cellar, followed by the snapping of wood, an echo of turmoil piercing through the threads of their resolve. Driven by adrenaline, they finally stumbled upon Mark, huddled against the damp walls, gasping as shadows recoiled into the darkness, swirling like a storm. As the group attempted to escape, a surge of darkness enveloped them. The atmosphere thickened as words they couldn't comprehend filled the air, angry whispers from lost souls spilling over into a cacophony. The force behind it grew ever stronger. Furniture flew, shattering against the walls, and broken echoes of laughter transcended the chaos. The seekers recognized they were not merely observing a haunting. They had unwittingly provoked something deeply tormented, a collective of souls aiming to restore their dominion over the Forgotten Asylum. Desperately, the seekers fought to liberate themselves from the clutches of hysteria. As they ran through the dim hallways, the howls of the unhappy dead echoing in their ears. They stumbled outside, eclipsed by moonlight's reassuring glow, but the remnants of fear clung to them like shadows. The building loomed behind them, a silent observer holding countless stories, lost souls unheard and unseen. From that night on, each team member bore the weight of the asylum within them, visions of laughter dancing in the corners of their rooms, nightmares awakening in the dead of night, and personal hauntings that whispered warnings to them how easily one could cross the threshold into realms best left untouched. 2. The Marionette Horror. In 2007, as autumn leaves painted the streets in hues of amber, a group called the Haunted Histories Collective was drawn to an antiquated theater in rural Massachusetts, known for its colorful past strewn with tragedy and despair. Once a vibrant stage for performances, it had become a ghostly relic, cloaked in stories of marionettes that moved on their own, and odd, shadowy figures that lingered in the corners of the stage. Spurred by the haunting tales, the group entered the dilapidated theater, their mission clear: to document the paranormal activity that haunted its halls. The grand entrance dimly beckoned them, with draped curtains lingering like forgotten memories. Moving inside, they marveled at the crumbling walls and faded glory of the benches where audiences once laughed and cried along with the performances. The air inside was thick with anticipation, but there remained an undercurrent of sorrow, a lingering sense of abandonment and loss. As they began their investigation, the atmosphere shifted. A chill crept through the space, despite the warm glow of their flickering lanterns. Drawing deeper into the theater, they set up their cameras and equipment on stage, surrounding themselves with antique marionettes suspended from thin strings. As the sun dipped beyond the horizon, shadows writhed unnaturally against the walls, the lights dimming with every beat of their hearts. Eager whispers passed through the group. Could they capture the ghosts of performers long gone? Then their patience bore fruit. As if guided by unseen hands, the marionettes began to sway gently, the echo of a long-past performance lingering on the air like a melody begging to be heard. Suddenly a childlike laughter filled the room, warm and cheerful, but it quickly chilled to the bone. Then came an ugly sob, a cry of despair nearly drowned out by the sound of flailing wooden limbs. The collective huddled together, torn between fascination and horror, as they watched marionettes twirling like puppets recalling an ominous dance. Streaming tears of disquiet slipped from Emma's eyes, as she couldn't shake the impression of being watched, her heart racing as she felt the cool touch of fear crawl up her spine. As Emma took a courageous step toward the stage to study the marionettes, curiosity wrestled with caution. Suddenly the room shuddered. One of the marionettes, with its once innocent face, twisted grotesquely, morphing into a mask of malice. Shadows erupted from the corners of the theater, swirling around the group like storm clouds, and Emma, now entranced, reached toward the marionette, feeling an invisible pull. The collective's confusion morphed into a desperate fight for her freedom, as they realized she had become a conduit for the malevolent spirits flowing through the stage. A cacophony of laughter filled the air, drowning out their frantic pleas as everything turned chaotic, with marionettes breaking free from their strings and moving with unearthly dexterity toward Emma. Desperation ignited within the group as they attempted to pull Emma back, yanking her away as the malevolent spirits bared their fury. Objects flew wildly through the theater, chairs scraping against the floor, and echoes of ghostly gales blowing through the shadows. The team realized they had awakened something primal and dark, their presence enraged by the intrusion. With renewed urgency, the collective focused their will to save Emma, chanting protective mantras to combat the chaos. Moments stretched like hours, the spectral wrath fighting back with a furious force, shadows coiling around them. Then, in a moment of flaring strength from within their unity, the spirits finally receded with a deafening wail. Emma collapsed on the floor, breaths coming in ragged bursts, eyes wide with horror as reality returned to her. She could barely comprehend the torment she had faced, the echoes of lost souls still whispering in the dark corners of the theater. Once safely outside, the group could hardly process the ordeal. The moonlight felt surreal against their fears. Though they escaped physical harm, the remnants of spirits chased them home. Days turned into a tangled realm of disturbance. Nightmares plagued their sleep. The shadows moved with an eerie familiarity, whispering echoes of a sinister joy. It was as if the theater had marked them as participants in its tragic play, and they would forever be haunted by the monstrous marionettes and the dance of echoes that left them entangled in a sinister tapestry from which there would be no easy escape. 1. The Howling at Harrow Hill. In 2020, a seasoned investigation team called the Spectre Seekers sought to explore aging tales of Harrow Hill, a site known for its anguished spirits and ominous presence. The hill, draped in shadows, elicited fear in locals, who believed dark forces stirred among the dense woods. Recent reports of howling winds and a chorus of cries at twilight drew the curious and the brave alike, but many warned against meddling with the dark. However, for the seekers, the desire to capture the story of suffering spirits overshadowed the pleas for caution. As they trekked through the forested path leading to Harrow Hill, the atmosphere transformed, sunlight waned, and chilling winds howled through foliage like lost souls seeking solace. The investigators halted at an overgrown clearing, the very air around them feeling static and alive with the anticipation of revelations. Each breath felt labored as they recognized signs of deep unrest. A whisper skittered through the leaves, palpable chill settling over their shoulders. This tension, however, merely heightened their resolve. They set up equipment, preparing to document the answers that lingered in the gloom. As darkness fell, the sensations intensified. Shadows crept toward the group like dark tendrils of smoke, whispering across the ground until they coalesced into indistinguishable shapes. The howling emerged, a crescendo of spectral wails that drowned out rational thought. The cries morphed into a haunting melody, stirring something deep within the seekers, an unsettling drawl that whispered with promises of revealing answers and hidden truths. The wind howled through twisted branches, feeding the maelstrom around them as the howls grew in volume, echoing the hearts of the distressed. Mark, feeling abruptly pulled toward the edge of the clearing, stepped forward. He could hear his name carried on the wind, beckoning him closer. With every heartbeat, the call grew more urgent, and without conscious thought, he ventured deeper into the night. An icy grip enveloped his wrist as something unseen anchored him to the ground. Arcs of terror surged through him. Shadows danced around him, intertwining with his own as he struggled to break free, calling out for help but rendered voiceless by a foreboding presence. His friends quickly realized something was amiss as they turned to find Mark had vanished. Panic rippling through the group, they darted toward the turbulent energy. Suddenly the howling intensified into an anguished symphony, screams spiraling into chaos as spectral forms appeared, swirling like smoke around their fallen comrade. The shadows pulsated with pain, reflecting the trials of those who had once lingered at Harrow Hill. Frantically, they held on to each other, forming a chain against the encroaching darkness. Faint voices whispered accusations. "You shouldn't be here, you have awakened us," a chilling reminder of trespassing upon the sacred ground of lost souls. With collective resolve, they pushed against the tide, calling out to Mark, voices filled with determination and care. They formulated a plan, a desperate attempt to reach him. Chants escaped their lips, trying to drown out the cacophony of screams that threatened to pull them under. A blinding flash of light erupted from their lanterns, illuminating the dark, and in that fleeting moment the spirits recoiled, voices stuttering into silence. With a final push, they seized Mark, pulling him from the grip of despair. Having emerged from the depths, his gaze was hollow and empty, as though he had witnessed unspeakable horrors. Stumbling back into the clearing, the air settled around them, the sinister force releasing its hold but leaving behind echoes of despair. They gasped for breath, clutching at each other, adrenaline coursing through their veins. As they left Harrow Hill, a sense of somber realization settled in. Though they had escaped, the experience had etched itself into their core. With every passing day, a visceral need to return clawed at their minds, as if Harrow Hill held their souls in a twisted reverie from which they could not entirely awaken. Even after their return home, the howling continued. The torment of Harrow Hill seeped into their lives, shadows flickering at the edge of their vision, and haunting whispers fluttering into their ears at night. Each pulse of sound followed them, a haunting reminder that some spirits remained bound to the earth, eternally howling for recognition of their suffering. The specter seekers understood now. The specters endure far beyond the veil of reckoning. They lived and breathed in the lives of those who dared to unravel their stories.